Welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. My name is Duncan Cameron, and tonight I'm joined by Scott Fleming to look back at last night's Challenge Cup semi-final win over Airdrie and also look ahead to Saturday's trip up the road to Dingwall to face Ross County. Scott, how are you?
Yeah, really good, mate. Obviously, a lot better with a cup final to look forward to now. So, yeah, fair play to the lads for getting that done. And another penalty shootout seems to be the way of things so far in this Challenge Cup. But if that's how we have to do it in the final, then I'll take it.
Exactly. I'd snap your hand off for a penalty shootout victory right now, without question. There have been some technical issues that have stripped it back to just me and Scott tonight, and also, unfortunately, we're not only without Robbie, we're without Robbie's copious notes he prepared in advance of hosting this episode, which also means that I hadn't made any notes whatsoever. So we're slightly flying by the seat of our pants tonight, Scott, but we'll do our best, and we'll see. We'll almost certainly still take an hour and a half to talk about a game and a bit of football. But let's start with last night and start at the beginning. So 2 changes to the starting lineup. Paul Incio and Andy Winter came in for Ross Matthews and Ennis Cameron. Were you happy with those changes when you saw the team come through?
In terms of Incio, I think. I mean, I'm never really disappointed if he's ever in the team. I think he gives you plenty of effort. He's got enough about him, plenty of energy, as I say, and he's pretty quick as well when he gets going. In terms of sometimes he's the one that jumps up to help in that sort of number 10 position for time to time as well. Although it seems to be that they seem to be taking time, like switching about when it's either Bruni or it's at Incio. They seem to, there must be a trigger that they're going by that it's one of them, but whatever it is, they seem to be switching about. But in terms of Andy Winter, I was a little bit surprised to see him back in the lineup. More than anything, just the fact that I mean, he had what, off the top of my head, what, 5 games today, something like that. That he was kind of in the lineup, and he was on that right hand side or on the left hand side, sorry, and he wasn't really doing too much, but we all kind of went, well, he's probably a striker. We probably want to try him up front, sort of thing. But it seems to be that he's been getting used. Although there was a game that he had been kind of closer to the striker more than anything, and that kind of seemed to work more. And that was the 4-0 game against Queen's Park. But yeah, I was just a little bit surprised considering we've not really seen much of him in the last couple of games, especially that we would, in a semi-final, just fling him in, considering Ennis Cameron had obviously started against St Johnstone. I actually just assumed he would go again with that, but he decided not to, so yeah. But for me, I probably would have preferred somebody like a Josh Mullen on the right-hand side, somebody that's going to supply plenty of decent balls into the box. And he's even, for instance, Easton was on the set pieces. Whether you switch it about with him and Mullen, it gives you different variety of sort of balls into the box as well.
Yeah, Andy Winter for me, on the evidences we've seen of him so far, he's a kind of jack of all trades, master of none for that just kind of final third. And I'm guessing the sort of logic for bringing him in was based on, the team that played against St Johnstone. Partway through the first half, he swapped Cameron and Vaughan. And I think it kind of makes sense, like Ennis Cameron on the right-hand side. I don't think anybody really sort of wants that effectively. So you get to the point where it's like, right, okay, well then let's leave Vaughan up front behind one. So we're going to have to take Ennis Cameron out. But I agree with you. To me, my next port of call would have been Josh Mullen as well, in the sense that you're getting a very, to go back to something Greg talked about last week, Josh Mullen's absolutely got a specialism. You know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get these crosses. Whereas, yeah, Andy Winter's just a bit sort of across the board. No real kind of spikes in performance. It's just not a case of like, right, okay, we'll Winter's out on the right-hand side, so we know he's definitely going to be running this guy, or we know he's definitely going to be doing this or that. It's just sort of plenty of endeavour. There's no lack of effort, but
it's not. He's not got like a star asset that you go, oh, he's got this. Yeah,
that's it. FIFA World Cup 2002. He's not got a star next to his name. Definitely. In terms of what you said about Paul Incio, I think it's exactly that. There's a willingness to him to play forwards, and I really appreciate that. Having complained an awful lot last week about the lack of kind of forward momentum, I suppose, from the midfield, you could see that that's what he was trying to do. And I think in the opening stages of the game, it took him a couple of minutes to settle. There was a couple of points where he was maybe just a wee bit slack, maybe the right word, like a wee bit almost like overconfident. Almost like a kind of like fake it till you make it type idea, like just playing a blind pass. And it's like, yeah, because if that comes off, he's going to feel great and everybody's going to think he's having a really good game. And you're like, I was just a little bit too close to losing the ball there. But the number of times when he was just happy to receive a pass and turn and look forward and then actually either run it or pass it. And also, as you say, Scott Brown was trying the same thing as well. It looked like there was a very kind of concerted effort to go and try and do that early doors. But in terms of, the early period of the game, I think the other element of it that kind of caught my eye, certainly, from sitting in the stand on the other side, was on the sort of Airdrie's left-hand side. Ewan Henderson got himself kind of 1-against-1 with Darragh O'Connor a couple of times. What did you make of that matchup?
It's not really a matchup that I was wanting, to say the least. It's certainly not something that Darragh O'Connor's got plenty of in terms of pace. So, yeah, I found it strange though, because again, maybe I'm watching the game differently to other people are seeing it, but for me, I would have thought surely when you know that Ewan Henderson's going to be on that left-hand side, he's got plenty of pace. Now, and I don't think that Jordan Doherty's got bags of pace, but I think he's got more than what O'Connor can give you. So it's more the fact that I'd have thought that especially early on in the game, that Doherty might be trying to see, right, I'll try and help O'Connor out a little bit extra here just to see how the sort of game's going, but then progressively try and work my way up to try and pin them a bit further back. Because we know that Doherty can sort of travel with the ball and put in good balls into the box himself. So I think for me, I was expecting maybe Doherty to be helping a little bit more, but again, I don't know if it's just the way that Airdrie are playing, because a lot of the time it's a lot of quick 1-2 sort of passes and triangles and all these sort of things, and I don't know if it kind of then means that they can move players around quite easily in terms of if we are going man for man and we're just following men about the park in that case. I don't know what sort of Imre's sort of stance is on that and how he's looking to combat it, but in terms of your original question, I think that O'Connor probably didn't have the easiest or the best the first halves, purely on the fact that he's up against somebody that has got pace, and he clearly knew straight away, right, I've got the number on O'Connor here, and decided that he was going to try and beat him a few times. Thankfully, it never really came to much. There was a few sort of half chances or crosses into the box that came to it, but yeah, I'm just glad that more than anything that it happened. In my head, I'd only kind of remembered maybe 2 or 3 like real times that he burnt him for pace. But I seen there was a couple of the guys in the chat last night saying, "Oh, it was happening like constantly." I was like, I don't remember it happening constantly, but it happened a few times. It was like, right, we need to think about doubling up here or doing something to help out O'Connor, because yeah, he clearly needed somebody to help him out in that point in time.
They're a funny side, Airdrie, in that sense that, like, as you say there's lots of different ways that they can come at you. like Ewan Henderson's played in all sorts of different places across this season, and he's like scored quite a few goals as he's done it. But it's kind of because they don't really work as a unit almost. Like they don't have a sort of preset. Like this guy's the striker, this guy's the left winger, this guy's the right winger. They're kind of always moving around just to try and kind
They
of
seem to
create
play the
something.
old like it sounds stupid when you're talking about Scottish Championship, but they're playing like an old Barcelona or Ajax formation where it's like a false nine is playing the striker and the front three just constantly move around. That's basically how it looks or how it comes across, especially when you've got half the time they've got Mockery playing as like the number 9. You're like, well, he's not a number 9, but it's because he can play in behind the striker, so he's allowed to move around as if he's still a number 10 sort of thing. So I think for them, they have got a lot of creativity in their team, so I think it probably does suit them most to be playing a formation like that.
That is, I think, is the thing is it makes it tough beforehand because you can't quite go like right. Jordan, Dara, Henderson's going to be playing on the left hand side. He's going to be doing this because he could have popped up anywhere. And it didn't mention it actually, but Owen Sturton came in for Airdrie. He's on a co-op loan from Dundee United, so they sort of announced him as part of the agreement more than a month ago. But this was the first time I think he'd possibly been in Airdrie. Was last night, and I think obviously the idea is that he's supposed to be much more of an out-and-out striker, and the rest of them will work around him. But they're not overly surprised they didn't get a huge amount of time out of that. He needs kind of time to get used to his teammates and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think for all that, I mean, the first half there wasn't a huge amount to it. Put it that way. We've talked about a bit of a battle on Airdrie's left wing. I mean, the Rovers had a couple of chances. Hamilton has a header. Easton has a shot that kind of flashes wide of the post. From a good bit of build-up play, actually, and that move kind of touched on what I was saying before about NCO. He doesn't actually do a huge amount with the ball in that move, but even when he doesn't, his movement is very good, and it helps kind of create that space. But overall, taking the first half as a full kind of package, is it fair to say that it was more of the same from the game against St Johnstone and the game against Morton, or do you think there was enough additional kind of output, I suppose, from the Rovers there?
I would say there was flashes that gave me a little bit more sort of optimism going forward in the game. We seemed to be a few times getting down the side of them, putting a few balls into the box. Hamilton got in the end, obviously, a header that went just over, but it was certainly far better than some of the away performances this season, but also some of the away performances at Airdrie especially. So I think it definitely gave me I was a bit optimistic, right, we might actually score a goal at Airdrie today, but I did actually, to be fair, me and my mates all put our predictions in as we do before, like 10 minutes before a game, say, right, what we're saying. And I've been for about 4 weeks straight 0-0. Like every game, just because it's the way that we've been playing, and especially away from home, we've maybe created one or two chances that have potentially been a goal scoring opportunity. Outside of that, we've not really done much. And we have, I know you mentioned it briefly earlier on, that the game against St Johnstone, we were far too negative when we were in possession of the ball. In terms of just constantly going side to side, back to the centre halves, even sometimes having to go back to the keeper depending on the press. Thankfully, we didn't really use Josh Ray a lot in terms of going back to him, and that was, for me, a positive to see the fact that we went, no, actually, we are going to stick with only going back as far as Hanlon or O'Connor and then progress again. But that's what I think you did touch on it as well, with it. NCO did. He was the sort of catalyst in terms of the one that's he instantly, as soon as he's kind of already on the turn, as he's receiving the ball, which is what you kind of want for your centre midfielder anyway.
Exactly.
Because if he's just back to goal constantly, then he doesn't know shit away if somebody's behind him, but B, he doesn't know what options he's got. So it's like, well, you want somebody on the half turn constantly to at least see, right, I can take 2 touches here before I need to decide where I'm actually putting this ball. But so I thought that was sort of more clear to see as a fan watching the game. But at the same time, outside of that Easton chance, we didn't really create a lot. But also, Airdrie didn't really create loads. So it was like, I wasn't worried. It wasn't like, oh, Airdrie are definitely battering the door down to score here and we're no creating anything. Both teams didn't really. I mean, both keepers didn't have anything to do really in that first half.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm happy to say that I think the second half felt different to that. I thought the second half we looked a lot better. 3 minutes into the second half, there's a substitution. Innes Cameron comes on for Jack Hamilton. Sounds like a kind of hamstring strain. Now, it also sounds like they've kind of taken him off at the earliest possible opportunity.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was in a fair bit of discomfort immediately, but then when he walked off the park and Dougie after the fact didn't sound like it was too bad, so fingers crossed that's not a significant injury by any means at all. But is it fair to say that substitution possibly the biggest factor in the difference between the two halves?
Potentially. I mean, it's no. I don't think I'm saying anything out of line here to say that it's been. Jack Hamilton's form has been brought into question a number of times this season, and I didn't hear it, and I'm glad I didn't really hear it in terms of through BBC Alba's coverage. But I was worried that there would be like this massive roar because he was going off. Like, but that's just the way that, like, when you're reading stuff online about him, like how his form has been, you worry about stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't think you can doubt his like endeavour and he tries hard and whatever. But it's just not been his season. And so in terms of Innes Cameron, he brings you that extra bit of height, probably that extra bit of physicality as well. He seems a bigger lad and somebody that's pretty strong, and he actually seems quicker than Jack Hamilton as well for being a sort of taller guy as well. But instantly we saw when he came on, he was involved a lot more in the build-up play than what Jack Hamilton had been in the first 48 minutes. And to be honest, in quite a lot of the games that Jack Hamilton's played recently. But I don't know if it's also down to we've started to play differently because Innes Cameron's on, or is it he's actually making us play to him more? I'm not sure. We've not seen enough of it to go, yeah, it's down to his play. I suppose if Jack Hamilton misses the next 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring problem, we should then have the answer of, oh, it's actually Innes Cameron is finding pockets or he's finding spaces better than what Hamilton was, or is it actually we're just playing completely different to the fact that it's Innes Cameron and not Jack Hamilton?
Mm-hmm. It's as you say, it's impossible to say on such a small sample size. But it just felt like there was more. Felt like the Rovers players were closer together as much as anything else in that second half. Like Andy Winter seemed to come on to more of a game. It was like Vaughan and Winter and Cameron all seemed to be happy to attack in the same spaces, and it just seemed a little bit kind of more coherent or cohesive. I also thought Jack Hamilton first half just didn't look comfortable at all. He looked tired to me, and he's played a huge amount of football recently.
Well, we've not really had another striker to help him out, so
this is it. I don't know whether it is just a case of actually he just has played too much football. He also got a dunt in the back of the head at one point. Maybe that was...
Aye, well, for McGinty as well, so it'll be a fair old dunt.
Aye, absolutely. A big Easter Island statue cracking you. But then... I mean, certainly there wasn't any kind of negative or, reaction like that I could hear anyway, and I think it's This is why you should have more than one striker. Really, is so that you can make changes. And as I thought, in this Cameron, he didn't come on and he wasn't. He didn't score a hat trick or anything, but it just seemed like, for whatever reason, and maybe it's one of these things where it's just like a change is as good as a rest. Like, other teams won't have seen as much of Ennis Cameron as they have of Jack Hamilton as well. But I think the goal is quite a good example of this, where actually, so I mean, it's Darragh O'Connor first of all who's playing a decent pass. Again, he's had a bit of attention the last couple of weeks from us as much as anybody about his passing, his distribution. Plays the ball along the ground. I'm not entirely sure if he's looking for Lewis Vaughan, if he's looking for Ennis Cameron, but either way, it's a good positive pass. Cameron, I actually think, does not take a good first touch, but to give him all the credit, he does really well not to panic. He doesn't do that thing that, again, I think multiple players have been guilty of recently, where it's like, you take a bit of a poor first touch, and as a result, you just pass it backwards. You just go, I made a mistake. Right, I'm not going to compound it. Just going to pass it backwards. Where's Josh Ray? Let me just... We'll start again. He takes a slightly poor first touch, but then doesn't panic. He turns, has a look at where everybody is, and then he plays a really good pass ahead of Dylan Easton. Kind of pass that I really like to see for your wide players. It's like you're forcing him to go running. Even if Dylan Easton doesn't want to go down the line there, he's got no choice. Ennis Cameron sent him down the line. And then it's all about Dylan Easton from there. So he's going in, he's kind of squaring up Adam Devine, who's the right back. Adam Devine decides just to run away, which I enjoyed. And Dylan cuts inside another one just for good measure, and then curls the ball into the top corner. Give me your thoughts on the goal, please, Scott.
Yeah, in terms of, as you say, I do think it was just evident how Ennis Cameron played that second half, in terms that he was actually coming really deep for the ball. Again, I don't know if it's a case that he's seen how the first half's developed, and maybe him and Dougie Imrie have decided there was maybe a hole sort of in between the midfield and the defence that he could potentially be taking the ball in possession there, and then trying to, or even playing 1-2s with Vaughan or whatever in these spaces to try and get us up the park. But then, as you say, it's a decent ball for Ennis Cameron to get him. And then what I actually like from Ennis, I know he didn't have to do anything because Easton's obviously scored, but it was as soon as the ball left his foot, he just sprinted it a gut to get in the box, because he thought, in his head, he thought, there could be a cross coming in. It's still an Easton, he's probably shooting. But it's more than anything, I think BBC Alba covered it at the end of the game, and I know that it was covered also for Dylan and his post-match for Raith TV as well, was the unsung hero, which he seems to always be, is Lewis Stevenson. The fact that he's bombing on, he did it quite a number of times last night, but bombing on, and that's where your Adam Devine decides, actually, he might slip this down here, and then they've got an easier cross in the box, and he's decided to bail and follow that. Easton's happy that he's bought that, and then decided to cut in on his right, and then, it's a lovely finishing at the top corner. It's the kind of goal you would want to see more of for Easton, but that you expect from Easton, because that's the sort of position you want him facing up defenders, looking to drop the shoulder, go one way, drop it, go the other, and then be putting it into the top corner. He scored a few like that, but there's been a lot more he possibly could have scored like that as well. So, no, I'm glad for him to get a goal again, because I think in recent weeks he also touched on it as well in his post-match, that Dougie Imrie's kind of been at him a bit more, the fact that he's not been scoring and not been contributing in terms of assists or anything like that as well. Nobody has, because we've been getting 0-0 draws, but it's more the fact that he's meant to be our match winner, in brackets, sort of stuff. Like, it's that's what he's been paid for. We gave him a big healthy contract at the start of the season, extension, so that he didn't go elsewhere to be doing that role. So I think he's definitely repaid us there with that finish and that goal. So I just hope that maybe it's the sort of kick up the backside that he needed for Emery or whatever to be a bit more creative, because I thought actually in terms of the whole game outside his goal, that first half chance where he's played that 1-2 with Vaughan and got the shot away. I think there was another sort of half chance he was involved in as well, but he just seemed more involved. And a lot of the time you can actually tell within 10 minutes, right, Dylan Easton's going to have a shocker the day, or he's going to be amazing the day, because he's either took one out the sky without even looking, basically, and then you're going, right, he's on it today. And then there's other games where he's getting tackled constantly, or the touch just isn't there, and you're like, all right, it's one of these days. But I'm just hoping that moving forward that it's more of that going into these final 10 league games, and then obviously the cup final as well.
Yeah, definitely. Just gonna kind of skip through to the second goal here. Well, this would be slightly a kind of truncated episode, I think. So, I mean, the rest of the second half, it kind of continues where the Rovers aren't exactly peppering the goal, but I would say the Rovers were on top for the bulk of this second half. One of those where if anybody looked likely to get the second goal, it looked probably more likely to be the Rovers. But as is always the case, you knew Airdrie were going to get one more chance as it gets to the end. It comes after the Rovers have made a number of subs, including one Richard Chin, who we'd been kind of clamouring for as a support, I think. Now, the cross that comes in for this goal, it's kind of headed on by, I think it's Paul Hanlon. And then it's Jake Hastie at the back post who's kind of running off Richard Chin. Now, as I say, I was at the game. I believe in the Alba coverage, it looked like Dougie Emery was sharing some feedback with Richard Chin at full time about this goal. Is it fair to point the finger at Richard Chin for the concession of this?
In terms of 100% blame, it's probably harsh to just all be down to him for it. I would say, I think that the boy that sticks the ball in the box actually got so much time to decide what he wanted to do with it, to put in a good cross. Could have potentially been closed down a bit quicker.
I think that's, sorry to jump in, that's one of these ones that's really unfortunate, or I mean it's fortunate for Airdrie, is the first player in the midfield takes a poor touch. It's a little bit like Ennis Cameron's. He takes a poor touch, and that really draws Josh Mullen out. And I find it difficult to criticise that as well, because it's like, there's a loose ball. And he's just, because he's a half second too late, it creates all the space for the cross. So, again, I think it's an understandable one. Sorry.
Yeah, and but then, obviously, Hanlon's kind of tried his best to potentially head it sort of on to go out for a corner or whatever, and he's not been able to get up high enough to get a good enough contact on it. I mean, when you watch it back for a couple of angles for Raith TV and for BBC Alba, I mean, Chin possibly has just had that split second where Hastie's decided, as I say, half a second earlier, that he's going to sprint in to try and get on the end of it, and Chin's went, oh dear, I need to be following him in, because that's who he's got. I mean, I think it was the camera behind the goal. You can actually see that Chin stood with two Airdrie players at that point. Whether he's actually not sure which one he's going to follow, I don't know if that's the one that kind of delays him ever so slightly, because it's then Hastie it's decided to go in. I'm not sure. But it then starts to look a little bit of a feeble attempt at trying to stop him, because he's then clinging on to him, falling over, and he just looks like he's been bullied. And I mean, I don't think I'll be the only one to say that Jake Hastie doesn't tend to bully people when he's on a football park. So I think it didn't look great once the ball had hit the back of the net on Chin, certainly. You touch on the stuff with full time, and it did look like he was having some words with him, and it was kind of almost like, "What have I told you?" sort of thing. But yeah, but then the good thing was, obviously we'll talk about penalties and stuff, but back, it's the sort of what you want to see from your manager. Actually, he's gone through a player, and then 15 minutes later, once all the penalties and stuff have been done, they've been over the fans, walking back over. BBC Alba again goes back to the two of them, and he's got his arm round them, and he's just talking to them normally, and he's probably telling them, "Look, don't worry about it. We'll work on it." But it's one of these ones where he probably knows it needs to be told, but at the same time, actually, I now need to get him back on side again. Like that. It's the way that your best managers, I suppose. It's how the man manage, and I think man management actually, more than anything, is probably more needed these days compared to back in the day. The stories you heard of what people just getting launched about changing rooms and everything if something wasn't going right. Whereas now, just you can't do that. I think, you've definitely got to be on top of your man management stuff if you're going to be a successful manager. I think these days.
Yeah, I have some sympathy with Richard Chin here. I think it's in the same category as the rest of them. You know, every goal's preventable, and there's definitely things that he could have done differently. But as I say, I have a fair degree of sympathy because all Jake Hastie needs to do is be there. Maybe that's not giving him enough credit. He does really well with it, but like his task is very simple, which is just run hell for leather for the back post and hope the ball gets to him. You know, he doesn't know Hanlon's going to flick it on. He's just trying to be in a dangerous area, and he achieves that, and absolutely fair enough. But it's like Chin, because you see it, like Chin's almost at a point, almost like sidestepping, because he's looking to see where is the ball. Because if he just goes hell for leather, there's every chance he's going to put it in the goal. So he's kind of having to shape his body, you know, away from the goal line, effectively. So he's almost trying to turn away so that if the ball continues on its kind of original trajectory, he can head it away from goal. Whereas, as I say, all Hastie's doing is just facing in the same direction he's been the whole time, and then the ball, you know, is in his path. So, as I say, I've got a little bit of sympathy there. I think if Chin just flat out sprints, he might get there before Hastie does, but there's probably a 50% chance he ends up putting the ball on his own goal. So, you know, when that goal went in, I was right at the kind of far end. It was a bit like the absolute kind of polar end of the park.
Yeah.
And just annoyed that a goal had gone in, really. And it's like, I didn't have like a great view of exactly what had happened. And so I had to look at my phone, and it's like, whoever, I don't know who it was in the group chat, someone was like, who lost their man there? It might have been Graham, because he was at the game as well. And someone else says, oh, it was Chin. And it was like, on that basis alone, I was prepared to be like, oh, right, this is maybe a bit nasty to watch back. And you see, it's like, he's not really lost his man. He's just been beaten by him in the end, which is it's not an egregious one, I don't think.
I also think maybe it's just something that seems to have been picked up on as well, that he lost his man or didn't really track his man for a goal in the derby. He'd also not done the same in the Arbroath game. It's maybe just in a few fans' heads that it's been something that's kind of been apparent recently with Chin. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's still a young lad that's moved up to a new league, and I get that he's been here now half a season, so or more than half a season. But at the same time, maybe it's just something that again it's him that's in the limelight for a goal that's gone at the back post. But yeah, it's something I'm sure that Doug Emery will be working on with the guys anyway, and especially with Chin, if he thinks it is something that he needs to work on.
Yeah, definitely. That's, you know, as we said before, I think it is only just the one game that he's started. You know, he's been here half a season. He's not had a huge amount of football. He's still kind of growing into it. So, we'll see. It's not I'm sure when he's thinking, like, I really wish I was getting more game time, he's not thinking about trying to see out a 1-0 lead with 5 minutes to go. He's probably hoping to get on when we're already 4-0 up and he can go and have some fun. So there'll be more chances for him, I'm sure. But that, obviously, that goal came on kind of so late that there wasn't really a huge amount of opportunity to do anything after that, and the game went straight to penalties. How were your nerves sitting in the house watching this one?
Well, first of all, there was I don't know if anybody else. I actually thought we were going to extra time, so I was over the moon when it was just straight to penalties. Because more than anything, I was like, we're up in Dingwall in less than 72 hours time. So I was like, I can't be doing with another. I was like, I can't be doing with half an hour. Never mind the players needing to play half an hour. So I was like, I think it was more than anything. I was just like, right, well, it's gone to penalties. We'll see how we get on, and we've just won a penalty shootout in the last round. So the boys should be confident enough that they could stick away their penalties. But no, obviously you've got a bit of nerves. I mean, I think you've got less nerves compared to, like, for instance, the Partick Thistle playoff at home.
Yes.
That had more, technically more on it than a Challenge Cup semi-final. But again, how many times are players in their career going to get to play a cup final? That comes into it as well. But a lot of people do kind of diss the Challenge Cup. But at the end of the day, it's gone up in prize money, and it's actually been a good thing for us this season that we've had a little bit of a distraction for league games, and now we've got a cup final to look forward to. But it's also a competition that we've, for some reason, in the last 7-8 years, seemed to love. And I mean, obviously, we've got the history of the cup final further back than that against Rangers. But in terms of recent times, yeah, we've been probably we've benefited most from the Challenge Cup in the most sort of the last decade, anyway.
Yeah, and it's I was the same as you, by the way. I wasn't sure if there was extra time or not.
Yeah,
Because I think the last 2 seasons at semi-final stage it's
they've
changed,
changed
but
it.
I can see why nobody wants extra time. There's absolutely nobody wanted extra time in that game.
I'd imagine for the final it'll go to extra time if needed.
Yeah, possibly.
Because that would be a bit anticlimactic if it just went, penalties after 90 minutes.
One of those League Cup games where you get a bonus point. But that, because even the Tannoy announcer, as soon as the whistle went, he's like, and now we'll go straight to penalties. I was like, well, hang on a second. Well, no, this guy played happy hardcore for like 40 seconds after the game had kicked off again. I was like, this nugget doesn't get what he's doing. I'm not taking his word for it at all. I was like, if anything, that makes me think they're more likely to be extra time.
I've not got a clue on Gaelic, so I didn't ken what they were saying other than because even the word penalties was in Gaelic, so I was just like, we're just figuring it out. And then it wasn't until you kind of seen the players all shaking hands and the captains were going back to the ref. I was like, I don't tend to see them normally doing another coin toss for which half he's shooting into, like at the start of the game. So I was like, oh well, it is definitely got the penalties there.
I don't really know how you analyse a penalty shootout. It's kind of tricky. Is there any surprises there in the takers? I suppose be the big question.
In terms of the sort of the order, a little bit. I mean, I don't remember Paul Hanlon stepping up against Queen's Park, but I might be wrong. But he certainly stuck it away very well. Because I mean, for a centre half, I thought it was a pretty damn good penalty. Ross Matthews as well. I know he has taken penalties before in shootouts, but I do remember the one at New Bayview, which was interesting. So
yeah.
I have to say that he was the one. I mean, I think Ross Matthews is a good enough footballer. He was the one that I was a wee bit worried I might have missed. But other than that, I thought the lads stuck them away really well. J. Rowe, again, inside of the post. Keeper's got no chance when it's in off that. And then, Innes Cameron obviously got the winning one because, was it McGrattan that missed for them?
Yes, it was.
I think it was McGrattan, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But, yeah, I think it was more the fact that we got 5 for 5. You can't really ask for much more. And I think Cammy Bell was saying, even on as the penalties were going on, he was like, "This is a pretty good standard, the penalties that is going on right now."
Interestingly, Scott Brown took the first penalty at Queen's Park. He missed, I suppose.
Well, he's not got a great record for us because he missed in the playoff against Partick Thistle as well.
So he's been bumped right out of the top 5 then. But that was,
and I can tell you something. I'm guessing that Dougie Emery wasn't allowing Richard Chin to take the first one in the first 5.
But it was Josh Mullen scored against Queen's Park, but so did Paul McMullen and Jordan Doherty. Obviously, neither of them were on the park, so Josh was the only survivor from that one.
You kind of in the back of your head as well when you're going into that, going right. Vaughan and Easton aren't even on the park here. Your 2 penalty takers basically when they're fit, so you're like, oh well, I wonder who's. But as I say, the 5 of them that stepped up all stuck them away really well, so you can't argue with it.
A wee bit of credit as well for Josh Ray and I suppose John Connolly as well, because that's 4 penalties. Josh went the right way on the 3 that went in, just couldn't get to them.
Yeah.
It went the wrong way for Lewis McGrattan's, but quite clearly Lewis McGrattan did the game where that was going, so we can forgive him for that. Whereas Harry Stone went the wrong way for all but one of theirs, so all but one of ours. Sorry. So there's also a moral victory there for the
goalkeeping union.
Exactly, yeah. But of course, I would say the main thing, as you said right at the very beginning, puts us into another final, which I think this team needs. And when I say this team, I kind of mean that in like a global sense. Like, I think the club, I suppose, maybe more accurately, kind of needs that this season. We're in this kind of mired mid-table. And ultimately, if we finish 4th, that's probably more important than whatever happens in a Challenge Cup. And if we finish 9th, that's more important than whatever happens in a Challenge Cup. And both of those outcomes are still on the table. But it's helped just having something else to look forward to, something else to turn attention to. And
something
then
positive.
Exactly. And a final is much more than that. You know, it's now just kind of focuses the mind a little bit, and you've got guys thinking about a final to look forward to, but also thinking about, I need to keep my place to make sure I'm still in this for this final. And like I've said all along, obviously we'll talk about this in a second or two in terms of the game against Ross County on Saturday. Like, I'm still firmly of the belief that we will finish in this mid-table mire, basically. I think it's just going to be the case that ultimately everybody's going to finish more or less where they are right now. There's just going to be little bits of kind of horse trading points every weekend, but that broadly, I think that the 2 of the current bottom 3 will finish in the bottom 2, and I think actually probably the top 4 currently will finish the top 4. So, as I say, on that basis, if, and again, I'm making big assumptions now, there's absolutely no guarantee that will happen, but say we do finish 6th and Dunfermline finish 5th and Morton finish 7th, you're having a much better season, even just getting to the Challenge Cup final. You've got a day out, you've got something to go and actually look forward to, and certainly if you win it, that's then a much better season. And it helps that there's a wee bit of money behind it as well. So definitely it'll be a good day out.
Whenever
still
it is.
To be, yeah, exactly. Whenever and wherever it is.
I've seen again, I think it's just fans obviously just trying to decide where this final's going to get played. But there was what I thought was wild anyway. SPFL can come out with a lot of wild things. But somebody said there was a rumour going around that it could be at Firhill. Now, that doesn't seem awfully neutral to me. That's 4 hours for Inverness, and then less than an hour for us?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I think Inverness played Alloa in a Challenge Cup final. Does that sound right? At Airdrie?
Possibly.
Which you think, again, like, why have you done that? Really? So I mean that seems to be the rumour that's got a bit of kind of momentum.
The problem we've got is we've got 3 pitches in between the two clubs that are absolutely dug meat in it.
Yeah.
So you instantly go, well, we're not going to either of the Dundee clubs and we're not going to Perth. So whereas that was where our final, where we were supposed to play Inverness last time, was meant to be at McDermott Park. But I just cannot see, well, the SPFL want to do it, but any of them clubs want to give up their ground for another game. I mean, they're struggling to just keep up with the games that they're meant to play. So, yeah, I am wondering where it's going to get played, because, again, it's not 2 massive clubs that are going to be selling out big stadiums or that. So you can't, it's not even like you can go to like another, like a Pataudry. I think Pataudry would be too unrealistic, because it's a massive stadium.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, you might get, I mean, I would like to think, because it's a cup final, we might take 2.5, a solid 3,000 to a Challenge Cup final. Again, if you're playing a bigger club, it attracts more people. We're playing Inverness. I mean, it's just a sort of a standard, what could be a championship game next season. But so I find it hard to see us going to another top flight club, basically. And if it is for Hill, I'll be surprised, but it's more realistic in terms of ground size.
And they seem to like Falkirk for this. They seem to like Airdrie's ground as well. So we'll see.
I don't know why, because it's the pitches are meant to be guff there.
Yeah, it's. I tell you where they should take it. Forfar Station Park, artificial pitch. 8,000 folk in there, all standing. That's what you want. That's what the Challenge Cup should be. Challenge Cup should be played in the most kind of traditional ground available at any given point that remotely suits the requirements. That's I'm throwing my weight behind Station Park. Right. So let's leave the Challenge Cup behind. Sorry, the KDM trophy that evolves but doesn't revolve. Leave that behind for now. It'll come back in a big way once we find out when the hell it's going to be. And we'll look ahead to a trip to Dingwall on Saturday. So, first game of the season between the teams is a 2-0 defeat up at Victoria Park. It was a tighter game than that makes it sound. The second goal was very much a breakaway right at the death. But the the game at Starks Park was slightly more one-sided. With the Rovers putting 6 past Tony Docherty's side. In terms of the league table, how things stand at the moment, Scott, is there still just about enough distance between the sides to stop this being a 6-pointer? Or is that firmly the territory that we're
in? I don't think on paper I would call it a 6-pointer. But I tell you something, if we were to lose on Saturday, I've been kind of a little bit more pessimistic with when we've had our debates of where do we see this season going, and I genuinely each week I'm worrying about certain teams. Like Queen's Park have picked up wins out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh dear, here we go. And then it's like I've been eyeing up this Ross County game for a long time now, going, I mean, we've not got a great record up there, and I know that they've not been anywhere near the levels that we expected Ross County to be this year, but they beat us up there early in the season, even despite being in poor form. So, and I don't think it was a fair reflection, that 6-0 game. I mean, we only had to be on the park that day, because they certainly hadn't left the bus. They just couldn't even be bothered. So I think we can't even take anything for that 6-0 game, really.
I think that's going too far to say we can't take anything from it. Like, they were poor, but they've been poor all season. There's only one team's beat them 6-0.
It's up there with one of the most inept and worst performances I've seen from an away side in the championship game for a long time. Like, I mean, on paper, I remember walking to the ground that day, because it was the first game that I was back for my Christmas break. And I remember going, oh, Christ, look at that front line. Jordan White, Ronan Hale and Jay Henderson. I was like, they could cause a few problems. And then watching that game, and I'm going, good God, what is going on with this team? But yeah, I think we have to be going into it just thinking. Obviously, you've got the positive of you've just made a cup final, so I think we go into it a bit better than we had been sort of in recent weeks, because of the fact that we hadn't been playing great and we've been scraping draws and stuff like that. But then we've went last night, had a little bit more of a positive game in terms of created chances, and against a team that we've not done well against traditionally away from home in the last sort of 5 years. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game Saturday. I think it's going to be a goal that separates it. I just can't see. I can't see. This is a famous Wayne moment, I think, coming up. I can't see either team like running away with this game. For instance, it's just not. I just can't see it. So I genuinely I could see it being 1-0 either way, but we'll just need to see, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think County's recent results would kind of support that. So, I mean, starting with their most recent game and going backwards, they've drawn nothing each, lost 1-0, won 1-0, lost 2-1, won 1-0, lost 1-0.
If you go by like flash scores and all these sort of apps that have got they've got color coded for their results, it's like chaff at light form. Like it's just constantly changing all the time.
Yeah. And just again, it's not a lot of goals and not a lot of kind of distance between the teams. So yeah, it will be interesting to see. I think County are very, very, very close to whatever the opposite of like an escape velocity is. I don't know if you can have an escape velocity for going down the way, but like Kettlewell came in, it was a bit of a, is this going to be it? And like they've already gone past like, well, it's definitely not going to be it. Now it's just like, effectively, I think their best case, and they'd probably have to beat us on. In fact, they definitely have to beat us on Saturday, and then probably follow up with another one or two. It's just getting into the middle bit with the rest of us.
Yeah.
But as I say, I think if they, I mean, quite simply, I don't think this is a wildly thing, a mad thing to say. I think if the Rovers win on Saturday, we will finish ahead of Ross County, basically. Right? It will be 10 points ahead of them, where they'll have 10 games left to play, and they'll be looking at someone like needing to get 40% of all the points they've got so far, just to get level with us. And at that point, if you're looking at it, if you agree with that, and you say, right, okay, we're Ross County, we're not going to be able to finish above Raith Rovers now. There's not that many more teams left. And I wonder how much, actually, at that point, as I say, the fight just goes at them. Because as we have seen more than anybody, the players in that team haven't had an awful lot of fight in them. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it might just be, as I say, a case that, if they get beat, Airdrie and Queen's Park, I'm not sure who they're playing now. Again, I don't know in front of me. Airdrie, I think, are at
Queen's
home
Park
to
Morton. At East End.
And Queen's Park at East End, right? So say just for the sake of the argument, both those teams win. At that point, I think I would not be surprised if County end up just like chucking it, basically. And again, just because the players don't seem arsed. So it's a big game in that sense. Again, I don't think it's a panic stations thing. If the Rovers get beat, it would really bring the next couple of games after that into a very sharp focus. But again, it'll be an interesting one. I think
for me, the reason I've been possibly slightly more pessimistic towards it is the fact that I'm seeing all these teams with 2 games in hand, and I'm like, if they get even 4 points out of 6, they're right back in with us, and I'm like, well, but then, yeah, I mean, there's 1 or 2 of them games, obviously, they're playing each other, but it's more the fact that just, like, it's also the reason why I've been so, like, we're not making 4th, is because I've always had about 2 or 3 games in hand in us, and I think, I mean, they've got Queen's Park's definitely one of their games in hand, I know that, and that's Somerset, so you'd imagine Ayr should win that, but you don't know. But Yeah, I mean, I'm going into it more than anything, just saying, oh, can we have the old 5 draws, like, so that nothing changes. But yeah, you just don't know. It's the championship, and it changes all the time. I do get what you guys have been saying in terms of folk are going to take points off each other, and I do understand that, and I've seen it many seasons. But I just, when you've got your own team there in the fight, you're just like, well,
Yeah, you can see the nightmare scenario.
you always see the worst in something happening more than, well, depends what sort of supporter you are, I suppose, but I don't know if it's a bad thing that I just always see what's the worst that could potentially come. But yeah, put it this way, just win on Saturday and then we didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, I just hope that we can get a positive result on Saturday, even if that's a point. Then I'll take it, because I mean, let's put it this way: our away form this season has been shocking, like really bad.
Yes, certainly goal-wise.
In terms of points gathered, but also in terms of goals scored, has been very bad. I mean, did we not see a stat? Was it just after Christmas that we've scored the least amount of goals in the UK away from
Yes,
home? It
and
was something like that. And
not
I can't
entirely
see
sure
that
we've
I can't
scored any
imagine.
since then.
Well, I was about to say I can't have really changed, because I don't remember a goal going in. So yeah, well, let's hope that we get a goal and we win 1-0, but you never know.
Yeah, you would have to think that Ennis Cameron's got to be in line for starting this one with Jack Hamilton going off. With only a couple of days really to recover, I would be surprised if he was still in the starting lineup there. I don't think we need to necessarily go through the various other kind of permutations. I think we've got a good grip on kind of who's in the squad and who's there. So we'll see. You know, I don't think Andy Winter necessarily did his chances a huge amount of good with his performance.
He's the one that I think I would be quite comfortable and happy enough to go and stick Mullen on that right hand side.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got Ennis Cameron there as well, somebody that's even sort of taller and a bigger frame to be hitting for cross balls into the box as well.
Yeah. Andy Winter owes me a favour, by the way, because due to the slapdash nature of the notes I had to pull together for this, we skipped over his miss.
Well, I was when you went from like the goal to like the end of the game, or to their goal, and I went, we talked last night about how bad that miss was, and I was just like, well, I'll leave it.
Yeah, I realised once we'd started talking about the goal, and I was like, is this worth pulling back to talk about? It's like, I don't know, it's kind of slagging off one of our own players.
Like, obviously, everyone you'd imagine that's tuning into this episode either was at the game or watched the game last night. It's one of them ones that I genuinely, confidently went, I think I would have done better there than what that effort was. And I know that Blair had a joke at saying, no sure about that, but like, it was just that how it was such a really good pass with Incio to get right to his feet, and then you're going, right, stick it in any corner you want, like either side, and it's a goal. And he's done neither, and it's the most feeble pass back that you can think of.
That, I think, is the... Sorry, Andy, we're talking about it anyway. That I think, is the frustration for me, because when we've seen him in other places and we've seen him doing other things, I think we've always been like, well, maybe if it's like... Maybe just if he gets a chance running through the middle, that's where he'll really be able to... And, like... it looked... You know, like in the other semi-final, Ayr sort of ran out of players who weren't defenders and played the last kind of 20 minutes with Kevin Holt.
7 or 8 defenders on the pitch to finish the game.
Yeah, so Kevin Holt finished playing up front. That's the kind of thing that, see, if Kevin Holt was played through and he hit that shot, you'd be like, yep, yeah, that's, yeah, like, good on you for trying, Kev, but we know you're not a forward, so don't be too hard on yourself. What a terrible note to end on. I tell you what, Paul Incio did brilliantly for that, by the way. That was exactly...
a perfect way. That's why it was even more disappointing that was the outcome of it, because you're like, Encio's just put on a plate for him, and Airdrie must have been panicking at that point, because they were like, oh, he's right through. I don't know who it was that must have jumped up, because he was wide open.
Yeah. He does the right thing as well. He gets it on. He's on his right foot. He's holding off the defender, and then he just seems to. I don't know. I don't know what.
It's that much like that poor an effort. You can't go. At least to hit the target.
yeah, true. You rank that against Ross Matthews' penalty at Bayview.
Make the keeper work.
Yeah. Right, Scott. I think we'll leave it there. It's very late. Thank you for joining me. Thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully that wasn't too scattered all over the place there. I think we just about managed to pull that together. We will be back at some point over the weekend. Robbie will get the Wi-Fi engineers out, and I'm sure he'll join us as well. I've never seen anybody so angry at their internet as.
To be fair, like
we could only see them in pixels.
We've all had spells like that over the time that we've been doing this, and I know the frustration because I've had it once or twice as well. So
yeah. It was like me and Scott looking at a pixelated Robbie. It was like a Robbie made out of Rubik's Cubes, just swearing in a Dalek voice.
Sounding like a Dalek for Doctor Who.
So yes, as I say, thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back over the weekend with whatever's happened up in Dingwall, and we'll speak to you again then. Thank you. Goodbye.